Starting on January 1st of this year, SB 329 and SB 222 went into effect. Housing vouchers and other forms of rental assistance are now considered a source of income. You can learn more about these bills on the KTS website. It's really a great source, so I highly encourage you to check that out. Remember, we need to apply the same standard for qualifying a housing or a VASH prospect that we use for all prospects. Typically, the resident will be responsible to pay 30% of their income for their portion of the rent. If the prospect's portion is not enough to meet the rental policy guidelines, you'll need to let the prospect know that our rent exceeds the payment standard. The voucher for a prospect that a prospect provides as our other source of income will not show the dollar amount. So we'll need to know what that payment standard is for that area and use that amount. For example, the payment standards for Orange County are listed here. In the folders that have been created in property forms, there are the payment standards for each of those areas. So check it out and make sure that you understand what those payment standards are. So let's go ahead and look at the different folders that have been created on SharePoint. We have the general folder, and then we have folders for each of the regions. There's a Word doc with links like this to those different websites. There can actually be multiple housing authorities within a region, such as with Orange County. You can see here there's Anaheim Housing Authority, Garden Grove Housing Authority, and Santa Ana Housing Authority. It's important that you do know exactly what that information is in each one of those locations that apply to your location. I also encourage you to check out all of the folders and not just the one in your region. For example, the website for San Diego has a really great step-by-step leasing guide. This is actually the first website that I went to, and it has lots of information. So how to find a tenant, what you need to request to have that tenant approved, what the different, they need to be qualified and vetted out by the housing authority. What about unit inspections, the move-in process, payments. All of that type of information is located on the different websites. The other thing that the San Diego property has a really great checklist for that leasing process. So the one thing about housing that I found out by looking at all the different locations is that they really do want to make sure you've got information available. And I've created copies of most of the documents, certainly not all of them, but most of the documents that are on the websites have actually been added to those particular folders on the SharePoint website. So next, a couple of other things about prospects. They are typically responsible to pay the holding deposit and credit screening fees. And they need to fulfill the 30-day notice that they gave to vacate at their current residence before they can move in. So yes, those prospects are, they're on a deadline because their voucher will expire. So once we've determined that a prospect qualifies, the document does need to be given to the prospect or to the caseworker. So either the prospect is going to give you the documents to fill out and then you give it back to them, or you give it to the caseworker. So let's just take a look at something I created. It has just a little bit of a heads up. This is the documents that you'll need to provide. So the prospect meets the rental guidelines and we've qualified them through CoreLogic. Now what do we need to do? We need to provide RAFTA, which is a it's RAFTA, sorry, which is a really large form, and the different ownership packet documents. Okay, so one of our supervisors who has extensive experience with housing is going to fill out a RAFTA form, and it will be uploaded then to this section. So you'll be able to use that as an example to follow when filling out the RAFTA form for any of the units that you have available that someone on assistance has applied for. Once the Housing Authority approves the tenancy, they're going to inspect the unit. And I know a lot of you have asked about inspections, been kind of like, wow, what do we do? One of the folders here, the San Diego folder here, has some really great information when it comes to the inspections here. So for instance, it's right here. This is probably one of the most thorough inspection checklists that I found on all of the websites. So I would definitely recommend that you familiarize yourself with this document, because it does cover everything. What do you need to be looking at? What are they going to be looking at? So yeah, it's just fantastic information in here. So that's why I say, go to all the different folders and see what information you can glean from it, because the more informed you are, the better prepared you're going to be for dealing with situations you haven't been able to deal with before, because we haven't taken housing before. So there's also, like I said, within the folders there are documents, but I didn't do all of them. So here on, I want to go to Orange County here. In the Orange County website, this is just an example of how many documents and forms there are available. You're going to look for landlord or owner. Look for, excuse me, that portal to be able to see the different forms and documents. Okay, so yeah. We have a lot of information at our fingertips now. Thank God for the internet. So check out, here's another website that has fantastic information regarding inspections. This is on the LA website. So because not only will you have an inspection for a new resident, but there's annual inspections or biannual inspections. And that, again, there's so many common things with housing regardless of the area, but there are very specifics as well. So you'll be familiar with that. So here's frequently asked questions. And there is another one that I wanted to show you that has some really fantastic questions, because there are continuing, after the tenant moves in, what do you need to do for housing residents? So here are some frequently asked questions for tenant issue and contract terminations. Man, this is fantastic. So I would venture to say that most of the questions that you're going to come up with actually have answers listed in the frequently asked sections on the websites. And again, like I said, I printed out frequently asked questions and placed those documents in the different folders here. So for instance, in the Orange County folder, Orange County, let's see, frequently asked questions. Here we go. And this covers a wide variety of things. Utilities, this is pre-move in, who pays the security deposit, right? Who's liable for damages. So the tenant really is very responsible for many of the charges that you might have thought they wouldn't be. A RAFTA, request for tenancy approval, that's what that form I had mentioned earlier is referring to. So this is actually quite a long, a long document. So you'll be dealing with what's known as a caseworker. You'll be dealing directly with them. It's important that you enter in all of the documentation and take notes, put notes into the history and notes tab of your resident. So there are a lot of, like I said, resources that are going to help navigate what's really new territory for most of us, right? So please make sure that you, like I said, update and put information into the history and notes tab of the resident, and also that you enter in housing information on the manager's general tab for each one of those residents. Their anniversary date, what's the entity, and is it specifically Section 8? Because there are different kinds of rental assistance programs, so they aren't all Section 8, although a lot of, language that I've used, I've kind of specified that it's housing, but just remember there's different kinds of rental assistance. So please make sure that you check out your payment standard for your location right away, because you'll probably find that in the case of your property, your location, you might already, your rents might exceed what that voucher would cover anyway. So I don't know how many properties are actually going to be having to deal with housing. So yeah, I would do that first of all. Check out your payment standards and make sure to reach out to answers@papinc.com if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.